You and I have done the same thing. We've left corporate.
I was being told, you're being irresponsible. Go back, do the job. The average wage in this country is, I think, just under £30,000 a year. I don't know how people are surviving. People love to buy from people that they like. Cold pitching is hard. It can work, but it's really hard.
Nobody wants to be sold to. So how do you sell without selling? This was an incredible conversation I had with Richard. The conversation really talks about everything you need to start a side hustle today. Going from sales, acquiring your first customers, understanding how to market to them, and have the conversations that can help you close $5,000 to $10,000 deals. You don't want to miss this conversation. Richard, welcome to TTalks.
TJ, thank you so much for having me. Always fun hanging out with you, so I'm looking forward to this.
This is exciting. I'm excited about this. Let's jump right in. You and I have done the same thing. We've left corporate, and some people think it's brave. Some people think it's crazy. What's your take on it?
Sometimes it's necessity. And sometimes that necessity is for our own sanity and because we've got to actually choose ourselves. And I say it in that way. I know this may sound profound, but I'm saying it in that way because when I did it, I had a newborn baby and a wife and a mortgage and a car and all the bills. And I was being told, you're being irresponsible. Go back and do the job. And I was like, but what about me? Forget you. You've got responsibilities. And it's like, no, there needs to be another way. So for me, it was about necessity because the situation I was in corporate was one that could not continue. I had to make a change and we're 11 years later now. So I'm pleased I did.
Amazing. It's the exact same story I went to, Richard. I could not continue. And actually for me, it was physically because I fainted at a customer meeting.
Wow.
I blacked out. And to your point, new home, 3 kids, wife, mortgage, car, you name it. And everyone, and my wife didn't earn at the time. So she's a stay-at-home mom. That was a choice we made by closing our business several years ago. And everyone came in and said, what are you doing? Right? And it's like, I can't sustain this. It's either I will die doing that, or I pull out and figure something out.
Yeah.
In today's day and age, I'm seeing more and more of this, and I'm sure you are as well. Why are so many professionals building side hustles right now, or they're getting out and doing something else?
It's fascinating seeing how the world of work has developed in the last 22 years or so I've worked. And I think that it's in no small, I speak for the UK certainly here, it's in no small part because inflation, it really is outpacing 2 crucial things. One is earnings, but the other thing is it's outpaced people's knowledge of how to look after money and things like that. Like people just aren't equipped. And so it's becoming incredibly prevalent that people have an additional job. And people think, well, I don't have a side hustle. I bet you do, because the number of people who are on Vinted selling clothes every month, the number of people who use Facebook Marketplace because it's a cheaper way to make it to buy stuff, but also to sell things, because that's just not how it was in the past. I know we'd sell the odd thing. There might be a car boot sale or something, but now it's becoming a thing people are genuinely doing. And an increasing number of people are on the side doing things they're really good at in corporate. So consulting or coaching and offering services and offering something, additional that's maybe not so intrusive on their time, because much of employment is being paid for your time. And I'm not surprised, to be honest, because I think it's very hard for a lot of people out there when the cost of living is soaring and in many ways, and often the wages don't keep pace with it. The average wage in this country is, I think, just under £30,000 a year. And I don't know how people are surviving with all of the other things they have to pay for. So the other side, of course, is how accessible it is now, even from 10 years ago. Like you've got AI, you've got social media, and you've got people falling over themselves to teach and show and provide services and apps and SaaS products on helping you get your side hustle going. So I'm not surprised in the slightest. And I think it's been called like the gig economy, this idea of freelancing and offering a service. It will develop into this full circle thing. We have a saying here in the UK from decades ago of we were a nation of shopkeepers. And I think we're going to maybe go back that way. And of course, big business will continue and employment will continue, but we'll see this rise of entrepreneurial spirit again. I think as long as it can be made safe and people can make it happen, then we're okay. But I do worry, TJ, because I think there's a lot of hype selling the possibility of it all. And for many, they struggle. And there's a lot more to it than tell the world you do a thing. You need to learn a lot more than just being able to deliver your service, don't you?
Absolutely. And I think the other element of all this is the trust in corporate that's falling off, right? All the mass layoffs that we've never seen before. We haven't seen these in our lifetime. Like I was at Microsoft 15 years, 20 years in corporate. Not once did I see continuous repeated layoffs from the same companies over and over again. So that's also creating a lot of uncertainty and anxiety amongst people. And they're like, well, we need to have some sort of way to provide for ourselves.
Yeah, it's no longer safe. I think it may be there's always been layoffs, but you're right. They are big. I mean, they make the news, and you know, there's a lot of roles that have been created. You know, if you go back far enough, there were like 20 roles in the world. You're a milkman, or you're a dentist, or you're a lawyer. Whereas now there's so many roles, and then a lot of them get folded into other roles, and of course the world develops. And as soon as a role is created in 2023, it's now dead by 2026 because AI was like, easy, got this. And so it'll be so interesting to see how it develops, but it's not safe if you're in anywhere. In fact, if you're running your own thing, you've got to make it work, and it's all on you. And if you're working at a company, you are arguably dispensable. That's the thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And going from the corporate side, we think that's success, even though we're burning out, we're dying every single day, we're losing a part of our soul every moment we're in those meetings and those conversations. What's the biggest lie we've been sold about success?
I think it's just that. I think it's that it looks successful, therefore it must be successful. And I was born in 1980, so it was a very different world, and my upbringing was such that inverted commas success meant you went to a university and got a degree, and then you got a job, ideally in London, where you wore a suit. And the minutiae didn't matter because you are a poster child of success then. And what's so interesting is that this was a narrative pushed on us, but fairly, because that's all the world knew back then. But what wasn't considered was happiness and fulfillment nearly as much as, well, they have a big house. And so it was so obvious and linear, the stuff I did. I went to university and got my degrees, and then I went to the city and I did my job and for 10 years and earned my money and had my suit and things like that, and bought the house, got married, and all this kind of thing. But the problem with it is that it's always, it's the same as what we see on social media. Like it's like, if you look the part, you must be the part, and the level of misery is incredible. And what's a worry is that humans, in their ability to adapt, evolve to tolerate an incredible amount of pain and difficulty. And I have close friends who work like dogs, and they're doing 3 times the workload they probably should be. And I'm all for working hard, but they're doing so much. The level of stress they have is normalized. And I think it's like, well, that's part of it. It comes with it, and like, that's what success looks like. And I just don't believe it has to be like that. And I got to a point where I was like, I remember thinking they could pay me triple and I still wouldn't want to do this anymore. But I also had a number of, in hindsight, weirdly fortunate things happen to me. So I had a very, very difficult 2012. I lost my grandmother that year, who was very dear to me. And then when my daughter was born in the August, she was born without an esophagus, so she had no windpipe. So I didn't even hold her for 2 weeks. She went straight to emergency room, and it was like 3 months in hospital and like so many operations in that first year to deal with all this stuff. And that was in the August. And then 3 months later, my mother died of cancer. She was a single mum. And so I had the most brutal implosion in 2013. And my weird logic that I had then was like, maybe I'll just work harder then. and I was getting in earlier and earlier and earlier in the office, and I was pushing harder and harder and harder. And for a year, and it's just funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's interesting because people talk about burnout when they're a bit tired. And it's like real burnout is crying at the thought of going to the office. Real burnout is not being able to decide what to have for dinner because you're tapped out, mentally done. And it was as I'd gone as far as the October of 2013, so all the way around that year. And I'd been signed off from work, and my wife and I we went to Sherwood Forest, home of Robin Hood. We had like this lodge with a little kind of hot tub, and it was just the three of us, and our little baby was kind of like, she was like a year and a bit old. It was actually my wife, wonderfully, who's like, you realize you could probably go and do something else. Why didn't you go do something else? And it was her that gave me the nudge. And it was so interesting. My reaction was, oh, I couldn't do that. That's something like I have to work, right? I have to be in an office, I have to work for people, and I couldn't let them down. And she's like, well, the one thing you can do is sell. You're probably going to be able to make some money. And she was absolutely right. And it was so healthy to think it can be done another way. And so then I eventually got back to work in the start of the new year, 2014. And I remember walking in, and the boss, the managing director, said, right, let's come in, don't even sit down, come into my office, let's talk about this year ahead. And I said, before you do, I'm stopping. And he was like, but we've got everything. I was like, it's got to stop. And I just remember feeling so relieved. And the fear was exhilaration. I was like, I'm going to go try a new thing. And at the backing of my wife, who's incredible, I had this thing of like, you've done harder stuff, come on. And it was all the scariness, but it was the right thing to do, because I no longer had to like worry about what other people wanted from me. I could do it on my terms, and I could ease myself in. And that was the worst period of my life. I had a lot of bad life events all happen at once, and it drove me so hard. And to have a job that I wasn't fully aligned with, to be frank, I was like, it was an impossible role. I was a sales director. It was just all so much. Something sometimes has to break. And so that's why I say it's weirdly fortunate looking back. I'm perversely really pleased all of that happened. At the time, it's horrible, but I'm really pleased it happened, because it set me on a new path. And if I can urge anyone listening to embrace at least considering that there might be another way, then they are urging to do that.
Absolutely. Wow. Your story is so inspiring, Richard. What you've gone through. And you know what part really stuck out for me? It's where your wife actually said you could do this.
Yeah.
Exact same thing happened with me, my friend.
Yes.
I remember getting dressed for another conference call after everything I've gone through, fainting at meetings, anxiety. Every time I'd show up on a Teams call, I'm shaking inside.
Yeah.
And the moment I would hang up, I'd have to actually go for a walk to like just release myself. Like that's how bad it had gotten. And that morning I got dressed, everything's ready to go. I got out of the shower. I come out into the bedroom. I lie right back down on my bed. And that's not my normal routine, because my normal routine is you get dressed, you go right into the home office, you start, and there goes the day. My wife comes in, she's like, what's wrong? I said, I don't know if I have it in me anymore. Like I can't pretend to put on that fake smile. This is just not there. And she goes, just casually, she's like, yeah, just quit. I'm like, and then what? Because she doesn't work.
Yeah.
And she's like, if you can make Microsoft money, you can make yourself money.
Yeah.
And that's when the light bulb went off. And I literally sent a text message to my boss right there and then. And I'm like, hey, I'm done.
What's interesting, a few years later, someone said to me, it was so perfect, that they were like, you got to remember that you may be scared in the moment, but all it takes is for someone to believe in you and to say you'll be okay. And it's kind of true, you know, and it's a weird one, because at the time we're full of doubt and dread and that, but actually, you know, people have done harder things than make some money. And I remember thinking, even within a year or so, I was like, it's surprising how little you can live on if you really have to. It's like there's some savings and we're making a bit of money, but it's like we don't have to have all this kind of life and that we just have to keep going. And I think the most profound thing is that I'm speaking for your wife here, but I'm sure I'm right. My wife didn't marry me for the money I could make at work. She married me for something else, and she married me for me. And so that's the bit that matters. And I'm sure some people might get married because the partner makes a lot of money, but really they didn't marry you for that part. And so preserving that part with all the fallout that can come with it at the cost of yourself is like, it's just a road to ruin, isn't it?
To your point, some do marry for that money aspect, but they'll never have that conversation that you and I just spoke about. They will never have that because that connection, that relationship won't be there. Yeah. Right. And they'll never say you should quit or you should stop, and then we'll figure it out, because that's where their money stops, sadly.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
the credit cards need paying. So fair
exactly. So no, this is wow. It's so identical, that journey. But why did we wait so long, Richard?
I'm pleased though, because I want to be really clear. Corporate can be incredible. Corporate, and no matter what you do, it will be hard. Whatever you do will be hard. I'm thrilled that I had my corporate career. I'm sure you are too. I'm thrilled that I had that 10 years doing those different roles and learning those skills. It's interesting that a couple of years after I'd left, I was kicking myself, going like, why didn't I do this earlier? I'm sure I could have left a bit earlier, but you always need that adversity or that life event to happen for you to go, there's my impetus. And of course I could have started earlier and, fine. But now I'm a bit older and wise. So I look back and I'm like, no, I'm glad I didn't, because I'm glad I had that full run of all of those things I did, because it only helped me move faster afterwards. And I just think, yeah, there's been a lot of learning since, but it was nice to be able to start on the platform of having some skills that I could really use. So I think corporate did a lot of good as well. Still, I think one of my problems was always I struggled with being told what to do, TJ. So I needed to have things a bit more on my terms, and so. But also, if you're not in a job that is so aligned, well, then burnout is a very real spectre. And also, not loving the job is a real spectre as well. If you are in love with it and it's aligned and you get the results for your work, burnout's very hard to do because it just doesn't seem to come as much. Burnout, you often work longer hours sometimes, or work even harder when you're doing your own thing. You don't tend to burn out when you're loving it, and it's what you've designed. So it's an interesting one to play with.
No, absolutely. And you're spot on, right? It's a part of that journey. Without that journey, without those moments, without that conversation or that impact, you're not, you don't know you're ready.
Yeah.
And then two, I guess you're never ready, but and two, you don't get that moment to just say, hey, this is it.
Yeah.
Right. And and I'm going to touch on something else. You left how long before your first sale?
Yeah. So my first sale was the company that I left. Because I'm never not a salesperson, so I'm always looking for an angle. And so when the exact words of managing director were like, it'd just be nice to have you around at least, because I had like 3 months of ramping down and my notice. And I was like, well, how about this? Why don't I give you a day a week, a Friday? I come in, I will do these things for you. I made them so much money. I was doing an operational role and tidying up like pipelines, not doing selling, but I was like helping them with like a lot of sales performance stuff and data and things. And I'm making them so much money in like things they didn't realize because they didn't have the time for it. But they're like, yes, please. And then so straight away is the answer. Then the second sale was about 3 weeks in, I got in touch with the company that I'd been headhunted into that I then left. So the company I'd been at before that last one, I was like, hey, I'm on the market. but I'm not like not as an employee, but like I know your job inside out. I know you train people, but you also are a sales manager. Let me do the training. You crack on with your work. And they're like, hell yes. So basically I came in and coached salespeople at the previous company every Wednesday. And then I got another one afterwards, which was a guy who'd left the that second company and become a CEO. Like it was like 30 million company turnover, and it was like, I heard you're doing this thing. I was like, and so kind of word gets around in your network. So there was that, but then so that was they were easy sales. You could argue they don't count, but they do. And then when I was online, it was so like the first online sale was in 2014, and all I had, because I was learning still, all I had was a Facebook account, which is free. I had a Skype account, free, and I had a PayPal account, free. So I had no payment on any subscriptions or anything, because times were a little harder. I did awful posts, a Maya Angelou quote, Henry Ford quote, all that kind of nonsense. I had like absolutely no idea what I was doing with content. And I was just posting an idea each day, or probably 3 times a day. And all I did was I just spent my day interacting with people who are business owners, because I'd come from a world of pitching business to business. And, if you want to do a deal with JP Morgan or IBM or like Deloitte, you have stakeholders and gatekeepers and all of the purchase orders and everything. Suddenly the world of the entrepreneurs and founders, it was like, they're there. And it was so much more straightforward. And all you have to do is talk to them. And they wanted someone who would listen. The common theme was none of them were making any money, which is still a theme today. And they weren't making any money. And so I was like, well, have you tried this? And have you tried that? And then they're like, that's handy. And so again, I was just like, well, what's the opportunity? I will sell them some time. And so I started selling. My first deal was a guy called JT. He had a similar kind of 2 initial name like you. He was in Florida. And he was running like a coaching agency. We got on really well in the DMs and that. He bought into me, and he was like 60 odd. And he was like, I would love to know a bit more about how to sell online. And I was like, well, it's just selling because it's people. So let me show you. And all he needed to learn was like what to say, and you have to start somewhere, right? So I sold this guy an hour a week, every week of coaching. Every day he would write me an email report on what he'd done, where the challenges are, what the problems, and I would return it. And that was $297 for the month. Wow. and I at the time I was like, I reckon I'm worth a bit more, but let's just get proof of concept. And in hindsight, I'm like, man, I could have charged a lot more than that. But it was just this guy took the other ones were easy because they were low hanging fruit. I'd worked with them before, but this was a guy who was like, I believe in you. Here's your money. Like, PayPal links, no problem. Off we go. And I was like, this is just so much more straightforward than it was cold calling and setting up pitches and going to meeting offices and flying to Zurich and then failing. Like, it just spending time with people one-on-one and nurturing. And that is where it starts. It's not great content. It's speaking to people. And until humans stop buying stuff, it's speaking to people that makes the difference. That's all it is.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, until humans stop buying stuff. That's never going to happen. But at the same time, nobody wants to be sold to. So how do you sell without selling?
So one of the great lines of many out there, of the magical Ryan Serhant, who's like king of real estate in New York, is people hate to be sold to, which is right, but they love to shop with friends, which is a variation on people love to buy from people that they like. And so therein is the answer. It's making professional friends with people, and interaction with frequency creates familiarity, and familiarity, because of that interaction, is where trust is born. No deal ever happened without trust. No matter how good the offering, it needs trust as well. Now, that's crucial, because if you're going to go pitch people immediately, the barriers are up. It's 2025. They're not just going to go, I will welcome this pitch. cold pitching is hard. It can work, but it's really hard. You have to have incredible leverage and a really good reason. If you were like, hi, I'm ex-Microsoft, I used to do this thing, and I'm interested in speaking to you about a thing that we also do here. Like, suddenly that's a good reason, that's a good opening. But, hi, you don't know me, I know you're busy, hey, can I pitch you a thing? Isn't going to work. But what does work is a connection first, check in as a human next, being reasonable with your choice of questions, like looking at commonality and earning the right to pitch. And people don't like this advice, TJ, because it takes longer. And people are like, no, I want to automate it and spam lots of people, and hopefully I just don't want to have to work. And it's like, yeah, but if you want someone to give you thousands of quid every month for your service, so you want the big transformation, you probably need to put in the big work as well. And the crazy thing is, it's more fulfilling anyway. So the answer of your question really lies in, instead of how you want to sell, which is they just buy from me, it's how would they want to buy. That is the difference, because when they receive you in the right way and see you saying things, to them in a way that makes them feel this person can really help, now they feel like you're someone that they might trust. And that's the platform for you to then organically move to sell something. It takes time, but that's where deals work. And it's never been any different. It's just different formats nowadays. But that's why online, the magic is in the DMs. And if you can build a brand and you can get people looking at your post, then cool. That improves your chances and that helps people like you more. But ultimately, there will need to be an interaction between two people. And so that nurture really matters. And that's how I started. Every day I would start 20 new conversations, because I'm always going to have KPIs for myself. I started 20 conversations, and after a while you don't need as many because people are starting to show interest and just give a shit. It's really important. Like you spend some time caring and listening. And I know it sounds cliche, but like, if your agenda is getting their money, you will fail. If your agenda is caring about the outcome and the results for them, then money, like the crazy thing is you make way more money than you ever would have anyway, but it has to come from a place if you genuinely care about, and if you don't naturally care about other people's results, at least care about the results that your product can get people, because that is something you probably do care about. There's kind of the start point. It's kind of that narrative in the head of like, I can genuinely help people. It's borderline criminal that I don't. So, but the way to sell is to meet them where they are, which is they're not ready to buy yet. So let's make some friends. If it's contrived, they will smell that a mile off, and you're just wasting your time.
Absolutely. And it's so important what you said there, right? About genuinely helping people. And people think sales is about pitching and selling and convincing. So you said something very interesting, which was you're asking the right questions to understand what the problem or the challenge these individuals are facing. And once you can tap into that and you can understand that, and if your product or your offer helps with that, then you pitch it. If it doesn't, don't bother.
Exactly. But that's why it doesn't work it doesn't work nearly as well when you go in first with the elevator pitch. It should be literally the other way around. So the first thing we want to do is understand their background a bit more, get them talking, because that's where you gather your information. And then you move to a point where you can start asking questions about that. You do your consultation part. And then you can say, well, it's clear what you need. Here's the solution. And that's when you prescribe, that's when you say, if I may, why don't I share how I can help? And by then, based on what's happened before, they'll be quite happy to hear it. And that's the point we go, well, here's how it works. And there's a big difference between someone willing to sit there tolerating a pitch and someone asking for it. And even if you go a step further, there's a big difference between someone going, go on then, we'll try it. Okay, like send me an invoice, I'll give it a go. That's a sale. But there's a big difference between that, which by the way is what I was doing in my early 20s when I was cold calling, and someone celebrating because they get to buy from you. There's the difference, because they're a customer for life. They don't want discounts. They are paying straight away, and they are then sharing a social media post how lovely you are, and they just are your best customer. So customer experience well, Microsoft knows this well, as you remember, I'm sure customer experience matters.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we're just looking like we're chasing their money, and those days were never in fashion anyway. They really aren't now.
From this, you have a method called the doctor method. Tell me more about that.
So it came from 2018. I I'd never been in hospital other than what I described in 2012, which is this very acute period of time going to hospitals. In 2018, the short version was I had massive stabbing pains in my stomach. I wondered what was going on. We had loads of tests and things. There was a lump on my gut. So we thought I had bowel cancer, which was bloody great after my mum had had it as well. And so there was a real big nervousness about that kind of thing. The short version on that is it ended up not being anything malignant, so it was all good. But I had to have this operation. And going through the stages of all the tests, the consultations, the operations and that, because I'm an absolute nerd for human interaction and sales and behavior and stuff like that, I remember, because you have a lot of time to think when you're sitting in the hospital bed, I was like, look at the dynamic when a doctor or consultant or nurse asks/tells me to do something. I just do it. I do as I'm told. What is that about? And the doctor method was born in a hospital bed. And so what it is in essence, it is 3 core pillars. The first is authority. Culturally, doctors build this narrative that they are the authority. If I have some ailment, my natural inclination is I should go see a doctor. Of course, there'll be some fringe members of society who are like, whoa, you shouldn't do that. But in the main, we consider doctors the authority in medicine. So authority has been culturally earned over the centuries, we believe, in doctors. Because they have that authority, it allows the second pillar to happen, which is compliance. Compliance takes the form of me going to their office. Imagine I'm the lead, basically. I walk into the office and the doctor says, so what do you feel the problem is? And I will just explain. I won't go, what? Like, who asked? It's not your business. I will answer the question. If they say, I remember this moment in particular, they were like, right, get yourself up on the bed. And I'm like, yes, sir. And then they say, right, lift up your shirt. Does this bit hurt? Yes, it does. Stick out your tongue, say, okay, no problem. Now I'm going to ask you more questions and you answer every single one. I'm not like, whoa, this is a bit intrusive. I'm already in that narrative where it makes sense for me to answer the questions. I'm compliant because of the authority. The third stage, it's such a beautiful analogy. The third stage is because of this, the doctor then will say, because of that consultation period, I know exactly what's wrong with you. Here is the prescription. Authority, compliance, prescription. And the doctor won't say, now look, there are 2 medicines. There's this one or this one. Which would you prefer? Because I don't know. They're the expert. So as the expert, they say, here's what you're going to need. Take it 3 times a day for 4 weeks. And I say, okay. Now, if you translate that to, for instance, running a business or generating leads and deals on LinkedIn, authority is your content. Compliance is that consultation and interaction in the DMs. And prescription is the onboarding call. That's the process. And it's beautiful. I literally had someone earlier today who sees me in the right way, looks up to me as not just an expert, but her expert. She's like so excited to have a call on Monday. I've asked her questions and she's answered me. So that positioning is there as an expert, where she has this difficulty. There's that contrast. On Monday, on the basis I can help, I'll answer a bit more. I'll ask her a bit more in terms of questions and that. And then she will simply say, here are my answers, here are my answers. And I'll say, well, it's obvious what you need. You need X, Y, and Z. And she'll say, okay. Even if she doesn't buy, she's not going to say, whoa, that's way too much pressure. There's no way. I don't think you know what you're talking about, because I'm not giving her options out of thin air. I'm working through a process. So the doctor method is that simple understanding. One might think I overthink things, TJ, but I do like analyzing the way people interact. And it was just such a penny drop moment. I was like, this is identical to how people buy in the right way. And so our job, if we are an expert and selling high ticket, is to position as such, because it means people are attracted. That's that cultural view of us as the authority. But it means crucially that we can ask questions and get them answered. Otherwise, we're just stuck with no one wanting to know. So that front of funnel really matters. But it's so beautiful at the end, because emotionally, they arrive at a state where they want the solution. And so when you gift them, like, here's what you need, it's actually what they need. An expert is the person we're looking to for the solution. The expert shouldn't be making the non-expert, the patient, the solution by saying, what do you think is best? We shouldn't be asking that question. We shouldn't be like, there's a number of options. It's prescribe the best thing for their situation. So
I love that. And I don't love where it came out from, but
no,
that's a fun journey as well. But
there's been one more child. There's been one more child. Other than that, no more hospitals. Thank goodness. So that's all.
thank God. Exactly. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
LinkedIn. You talked about LinkedIn. You talked about DMs.
Yeah.
You had Facebook at some point. When did that switch happen and why?
Yeah. So I was Facebook from 2014. Then I added Instagram 2016. And I remember back end of 2017, I called it, because in August 2017, LinkedIn flicked the switch on video. And it, you could always post like a status or something like that. But now I was videoing it and I was like, that's a bit more of a content play there. And I remember like November, December thinking, I'm business to business really. And the context there is way better for business, where it's Facebook. So I'm fighting against wedding photos, it's so pure social here. And so January 2018, I wasn't like, oh, I'm all in, but I started LinkedIn. And it was hard and weird, because in my head, I was thinking, all the people I've ever worked with, all the customers I've had, all my friends as well, they're all going to see this. And that will almost stop me posting. But I remember thinking, well, that's good, because I always try and look at it positively. I was like, that's good, because that's a check on you writing rubbish. Like, write good stuff then, And what's interesting is that no one came to troll, because actually LinkedIn is quite supportive. It's a really nice place to operate. And within a month, I had a gig. Like, I got a sale, and I was like, this is just straightforward, because the context is already there. And also back in early 2018, there was like not many. One of our mutual friends, Tima, she was posting then as well, but like there were very few people who were actually doing it, and relatively speaking. And so you couldn't really miss. And so I started then, and then it wasn't long. I reckon it was like 2 more years to when the pandemic really kicked off, like 2020. And I just stopped Facebook and Instagram. There's just no point, because they were harder and harder. And I, again, contextually missing the point, and LinkedIn took over. So for me, it's just LinkedIn and an email list is all I need, really. So I made that full pivot over. But so 7.5 years has been a long time. And I've seen a lot of change on that platform. People worry about reach being down, but it's still early. If you're posting on LinkedIn now, you really are still early, and there's plenty to go around. It's relative. In 2020, you couldn't miss. You'd get 100,000 views in a day on a carousel, whereas now it's not really as likely. But I do think now it's an interesting time, because it's so AI dominated. The danger is showing up with value that AI could also produce. Where we win now in 2025 is sharing insight, because AI cannot do insight. AI cannot say, when I worked at Microsoft for 15 years, here are the 3 things I learned, or Microsoft came to me for this project, or when I worked with this company. Like, these experiences are the bits that, this is authenticity 2.0, basically. This is how humans are like, okay, there's someone who's not producing slop. I can actually work with this person who's present. And that's what we need to be doing now. It's fascinating seeing how it's evolved, though. A lot has changed.
And it's going to continue to change, obviously, as well. There's a lot of noise out there about how often you should post, what kind of content you should create? What's your rhythm?
Yeah, I post once a day. If something comes up that I feel I want to post, then I might add another one, but I usually save it till the next day. I view myself as a business owner who creates content, not a content creator. There is a difference. A content creator is someone who does that for their living and downstream makes money off it because ads, or they've got stuff on Gumroad or whatever. But I run a business that does a thing, and it also requires, in the marketing element, me to post content. So I'm not on there like religiously writing comments all day long. I don't go viral much, and pound for pound against the average person of my follower size, for instance, I do woefully compared to them in terms of the engagement, because I'm not mucking around on LinkedIn all day, and so there is a difference. But I do think it's more than sufficient to post one a day. You should, in your mind, have a big red flag and alarm bells ringing if you start thinking to yourself, how little can I get away with, though? But the answer to that question, in my opinion, is you should at least be posting 3 to 4 times a week. Because otherwise, the people who are into you just don't see you. And what's the point? You need to be on people's radar. And if there's one thing anyone needs to learn about sales, it's that you need multiple touch points to get that familiarity, which is where I said earlier, that's the seed of trust. You can't expect great results from scant posting. So it makes sense to post daily, in my opinion. And we have time to do that.
Absolutely. And I think, you hit on something really, really strong there as well, is you need to be seen. And there's a difference between being visible and being viral. Someone who goes viral, the last video that was viral that I saw, I don't even remember. It doesn't stick in my head. I remember something, but I don't know who did it, why, what, nothing. There's no context. But when someone's seen, when they're visible, you remember who that person is. And that's key.
That's why, it's dangerous, because the mainstream narrative is get reach, get visibility, and everything will work out. And that's rubbish. It's get alignment. And always in your mind, there should be this question of, are the right people seeing me in the right way? That's all that matters. You don't need to go viral. You do need the right people to see you in the right way. And if you get that bit right, you're fine. It's funny how a lack of virality or views just doesn't matter after a while when you start getting clients. And it's just a fascinating one. But actually, to your point, I remember someone a while back I saw, and their approach was they would find viral TikTok videos, and it might be, some near miss with a lorry and a train, for example, like a super viral slop from the internet. And they would post the video, which is compelling, or stuff like that. And then they would write their post around it. And their view was, I'll attract them with this thing that is super compelling. And then they'll read my post. And it was so interesting that his views went through the roof. He had thousands of likes, but no one was commenting. And those that did commented about the truck. They never commented about his thing. And I was like, it's just perfectly proving the point. Like, you're entertaining us, but we have no idea what you do. So you have to be cool with sometimes not being viral and popular. What you need to do is be impactful and useful, and take it from there. Otherwise, it's not going to last long, if no one's interested in trying.
Absolutely. And I think, and I see that all the time as well. And there are times where I've seen a post like that or a video, it gets my attention. And then as soon as I'm about to look at, reading the content, it's something totally different. I'm like, I tune out. I'm done. Right.
Exactly.
So I move on.
You might remember the video. As you rightly say, you will never remember the person who posted it.
Exactly. No, absolutely. So we've covered a little bit of sales. We've covered LinkedIn. Let's cover first 3 clients. A lot of people think there's funnels, there's all these systems. That's not what I did. I'm sure that's not what you did. So let's talk about what that looks like.
Yeah, simple is best. And it depends on what you're selling, of course. But at the start, you're not going to have this juggernaut of a brand. If you're at 0, you need to spend a disproportionately large amount of your time manually speaking to people. An avoidance of that is avoiding the primary point of a business, which is customer acquisition. That is the primary role of any company, is to get more customers. All the other stuff is secondary. So the first 3 customers come from sure posting, because you might get lucky. And you know, maybe if it's day 1, I'm going to post 2 to 3 times a day for the first weeks and months, because you do have time. The reason why you have time is you don't have any customers. So you do have that time. And a really nice way to look at it is, if I wanted a customer giving me work between 10:30 and 12:30 every Wednesday, and I don't have one, let's use that slot to find one. So the time I'm going to be spending is in 2 places. One is the comments, and if no one shows up for my post, go where the parties are. If no one's here for me, but they're all hanging around with TJ, I will go to your post and show up there. And you've got to ask yourself, if you're the new kid at school in the playground and you want to break into the cool group, then are you going to say something cringe, or are you going to listen and then add something valuable? And it's all you're doing. It's all the cues from the offline world for humans. So I'm just going to consider what's being said, support the author of the post, support the audience's learning too with my 2 cents. And of course, then some people will drip through to me. But the other thing I'm going to do and spend most of my time in is starting conversations with people. And I shared this with someone yesterday on a coaching call. She's like, I don't feel like there's loads of conversations. I was like, have you seen, you know, she just started, have you seen you got like 16 likes on your post? It's like, yeah, they're just likes. Just likes is all you got right now. So every one of those gets a connection request with a note. Hey, I just want to say thank you so much for liking my post. I really appreciate it. How are you? Not, thanks for liking my post. Here's a bit about me. Because they never ask. They never ask. And you may feel like, but I've got this value I could give them, and I know that they like my workshop. Sure, but keep your powder dry. You need to wait till the time is right. You need to earn the right to pitch. So it's all that time starting new conversations. Your first 3 customers come from interacting with people. And when we have these conversations, it's relate. Show you're actually interested in them, because you should be. This might be your biggest ever customer, is always what should go through your head. This might be someone who you end up being family friends with. You want to have a relationship with them. So show why you're interested in them. Be relatable. I'm like you too. I experienced that too. We hit it off because we talked about our daughters originally and things like that, TJ, and mutual friends and so on. Be normal and human. And then what happens is they will naturally show some interest in you. Now, on LinkedIn, it may be that conversation doesn't go anywhere. But the reason why that's okay is because if you have a DM interaction with someone on LinkedIn, they will now see your content. It's like 90% guaranteed. So any back and forth and DMs, LinkedIn will say, well, probably they want to see Richard's content too. And maybe the content starts doing the heavy lifting of warming them up. But each day I'm going to add some new people. And if I get on topic about their world and they share a struggle or even compliment me on things I've talked about, that's an opportunity to say, well, look, that's actually what I do. Would you like to explore how it would look if I helped you? They tend to say yes because of what's come before, because we're getting on well and they're looking up to us because I've shared some value or some ideas because we eventually got there. And therein is the creation of authority in the doctor method, and a little bit of compliance is beginning. And then we get on a call, and often the call can be, let's just grab some time, because wouldn't it be nice to connect properly anyway? Isn't it nice to do that rather than DMs? And everyone always agrees. So you get on a call and you're like, look, I'd love to hear a bit more about your background, first thing. Then, of course, we can explore a bit more about the problem you mentioned, second thing. And then, of course, if there's a fit, we can explore if I can help too. Sound good? And they'll say yes. So now they will tell you lots of stuff because they're looking up to you. Then you can ask them questions and probe and pick at it and consult, which is that compliance piece. And then you're like, this is like literally what I do. I know I've done this for 15 years. Oh, really? Yeah, like I literally know what I would do with you. If I may, why didn't I share how it would work? Well, go on then. And they, again, because it's not cold, they've gone through all this with you. They will quite happily hear your prescription of the solution, which will be, here's, because it's a blind spot for them. You just go, here's what you're going to need. This is your current situation. The reason why is because you need this, and that's what I do. When I do A, B, and C, it gives you that outcome. Here's the program, if it's a service, it's 3 weeks and it works this way. And it's as simple as that. Like, what do you think? And they'll be like, oh, it sounds great. They do. And then you give them the price. And if they see it as valuable, they will be either happy to go ahead or gutted they can't afford it. So cash flow, so handle that, maybe a payment plan. But they're rarely going to say, oh, that's a bit expensive or that's ridiculous, because they're into you. Because expensive is totally subjective based on if we see value or not. And so if you do 3 of those a week, you'll probably get one say yes. Another one will be like, oh, I'm not sure. Another one will think about it, or whatever. But one will say yes. And that's what you're really mapping towards. Isn't virality. It's trying to book about a call a day. And if you need 4 conversations a day to do that, cool. If you need 11, okay. But that's what it is. And about a call a day gets you about a deal a week, depending on what you're selling, of course. But at least it gets you in the room with the right people. And that's it. And then get off LinkedIn because you now got customers you can service.
Exactly. No, I love that. I love every bit of it. I love that journey. I love the structure, everything you talked about. But there's one blocker for a lot of the corporate folks.
Yeah.
And I hear this all the time, and I've heard it even when I was in corporate while they were doing their own roles. Yeah. I'm not a seller. I don't do sales. I don't sell. Probably one of the biggest lies that we tell each other, because when they went into the interview for that job, they were selling themselves. So let's start there. But what's your advice to those people who are not comfortable with approaching, connecting, and going through the motion of having that conversation, not knowing what questions to ask?
Yeah. So if I am a professional salesperson and I'm cold calling here and the customers are over here, that's a huge leap I have to take. It's horrible. I did it. It's not nice, but you can make money. And if you're paid to do it, you have to. What we're talking about is closing that gap to remove the awkwardness. So what we're doing is talking about attraction, being compelling, being that doctor through the content. So a doctor doesn't have to ring you up and ask if you're ill. The doctor doesn't have to sell you on the medicine. What happens is you come to the doctor. So the inbounds are what we're creating here. Now, if you can't create the inbounds yet because you're early days in your content, all it is conversation. And what you're doing is you're being reasonable with the questions you're asking. If someone looks at your profile, it's reasonable. It's not selling. It's reasonable to say, I saw you looked at my profile. I just wanted to say thank you so much. That I really appreciate it. Hope you're having a great August. Is incredibly reasonable. It's what you'd say in real life anyway. And that's bringing these 2 people together. However, ultimately, there will always be a little leap of faith required. If you want someone to spend $6,000 a month with you, you're gonna have to try a little bit and actually step in their direction. And a lot of people want to preserve their fragile ego or pride or worry, and they'd rather live in a space where they don't live with any fear, but not test what it might be like the other side. And you find most people, like basically all of them, are actually really nice. And no one has a problem ever with you getting in touch with them if, again, you're being reasonable. If you do the things that you would personally reject as spammy and salesy, well, what do you expect? But if you say to someone, I just want to say thank you, I really appreciate you looking at the post, it means a lot, hope you're well, hope we can connect. Well, then, they will be fine with that, and that's your start point. So how are you? I'm fine. What do you do? I do this. What do you like about the post? I liked that. Why is that? Because this bit matters to me. How come? Because I'm trying to work on building this thing up. Okay, well, I can help with that. Do you want me to explain how? Or should we get on a call? I'm happy to share more. Yes, please. And some people won't share a struggle. No problem. So they're now a great connection. They're going to see our content. What's crazy about it, TJ, is then 6 months later, they come back and they're like, hey, I love your content. I think now's the time. I had someone the other day. It was like, I've wanted to work with you for ages. He said, it was about a month ago. I wanted to work with you for ages and it wasn't quite right. and now you've launched this new thing. It's perfect for me, and I'm in. And I'm like, there you go. So just don't think it's a failure if someone says no, because you've just nurtured a new connection the right way. And like maybe they need to be warmed a bit. And for every one of those, there might be someone who actually is interested. But it's just so much fun to create these new connections because you never know what might happen from it.
Absolutely. And these connections are powerful. Like, I mean, I get those messages that you're talking about all the time. I've been watching you for months, TJ.
Yes.
They've never commented, they've never liked, they've never interacted or engaged, but they've been watching from the sidelines. But the connection piece you're talking about, Richard, I've had moments where some of these calls got very emotional for both because they're feeling the same pain. They're sharing what they're going through. Yeah. I had one person telling me about he wants to leave and build more wealth because his wife is terminally ill and he needs to make ends meet to a different extent. He's now doubting how he's going to do things without her being around for his kids. And the reasons are endless. But to your point, you build that genuine connection and people will share with you. And if you can genuinely help them, you help them through.
Yeah, but it's a massive sign. If someone's opening up like that, it represents that they see you as approachable. No one shares a struggle unless they want it to be solved, and because they wouldn't. People fear ridicule and the barriers are up. And if you ask someone on the street, "Have you got any challenges?" Like, no, I'm fine. Or if you ask any CEO cold, what business challenges have you got? Which is a stupid question anyway. But what if you said it? They'll all say, "I haven't got any. I'm fine." And you're like, because everyone has problems. So the fact they're sharing it with you is a display of of your positioning in their mind, and it is a gift, and it's not to be played with, because this is about someone really in need. And for, like you've described here, some people for them it's incredibly emotional, and so there's a moral obligation and a duty of care to do right by them. And what that might be is to say, I don't know how to help you with this, but I know someone who can. Well, let me support in the way I can. I've said to people in the past, that's not the space I'm an expert in, but this part is. So I can do that for you, but I know someone. And like, just be a good guy. Like, it's such a hack to be a decent guy, And I just think, the money will flow if you're a decent guy, because it works out, or it works out in a different way for them. But always put the customer first in that sense, and you should be okay.
Absolutely. And I think you said it earlier as well. Don't go out with the intent of selling, go out with the intent of helping, right? If you're actually out there to genuinely help someone, and even if that means, hey, listen, I'm not the right person for you, let me connect you with this person. That's going to go a long way, because they're going to think of you as someone who's actually there to support and help. It might not be for this opportunity, but they might come back for something else, or they might refer someone.
That's how you get reputation building. And like, you don't build your reputation overnight. You don't even build it over a month. You build it brick by brick every day. It's incredibly slow, and attempts to hack at perception of success and reputation that isn't earned doesn't work long term at all. What you need to do is earn it, and word gets around if you're being decent. And like, it's such a amazing business strategy to be a helpful, thoughtful, engaging human, and to make professional friends with people as well. It's really powerful. It's just different to what we were taught in the past, which is being a bit more mercenary.
Absolutely. Wow. Richard, I mean, I can talk to you for hours. This is incredible. I love everything you've shared. I'm going to switch up gears a little bit. We're going to go to a rapid fire segment. And it's basically, the rules are simple. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to throw it at you. And then whatever comes top of your mind, you answer with. So, okay. Ready to go?
Quick answers. Let's go. Yes.
That's it. Let's do this. Tea or coffee?
Always coffee.
You're in the UK, isn't it? Isn't it?
I know. Tea? I'm an outlier. Hey, I can't be normal, can I? Of course.
One word describes selling without being sleazy.
Elegant.
Oh, elegant. I like that. Song that gets you going and puts you in the zone.
It's not entirely a song. It's the sound of Stripe notifications dinging away. That's my favorite song.
Love it. I love it. I'm going to put that on full volume for myself.
Yeah, you go.
first thing you'd buy if you hit 10 million tomorrow?
Because the reason why this answer is difficult is because I was watching a podcast recently about someone who's like, if you were given a load of money, like it kind of life changing, but it's dangerous because you might feel flush and spend it all. Probably the first thing I'd buy and could absolutely afford is someone to help me understand what to do with that money. Someone who's operated someone like Dan Martell, who's worth 100 million. I've got him in my DMs this week, actually. Like, I'd be like, hey man, I've got 10 million. How much for an hour? I want to hear, like, so I don't do anything stupid. Lamborghini, big holiday. Yeah, well, like, really? Like, what am I going to do with this 10 million? I want data now. I'm a responsible guy and I would like to know what to do with it.
Love it. I love that. That's probably one of the best answers I've heard on that. Usually it is Lamborghini or Ferrari or a house or
stupid purchases. Yeah.
Exactly. I would actually, to your point, I would invest that 10 million, take the interest from that I'd earn, and then buy the Lamborghini.
Or then buy the help, because it takes 1 month to make plenty of interest, and you could probably pay
exactly
for a coach. Exactly right.
So let's go to the next question. Most revenue you've done in a day?
I've done multiple 5 figures, but I want to not answer directly. I want to give you a different answer, which is the most deals in a day was 32 when I launched a new program. And I'm more proud of that than the amounts of money I've made in days, because let's be honest, like probably the day I made the most was circumstantial, because something dropped in that was meant to be from the day before, and I happened to, someone's payment plan, whatever. But the 32 deals thing, the first one was 1 minute and 6 seconds. And the reason why was because we built and built and built, and as a team worked towards this thing. And then it was like game time, go. And everything cascaded in the right way. And all these people, but it was like ding, 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 ding. That was beautiful. And the reason why I'm happy about that is not the automation. I love that we worked together and built a thing. And it was like, everyone's like, oh, 32, well, I'm like, we earned that. That was born years back in like my experiences and what I went through and what I built and the right hires I made and all of the, the turn left instead of right moments and things like that. So the 32 sales, I'm not going to forget in a hurry. That means more to me. And that was not my biggest day, actually. They were small deals.
And I was going to say, you're not going to forget that until you hit the day with 64.
Well, yeah, of course. Then it gets scary. It's like 128 next time. So...
Exactly. I love it. Worst sales mistake you've ever made?
Worst sales mistake. The worst sales mistake, and I've done it more than once, was probably when I was 23, 24. At times, I would be this jumped up idiot who focused on the money so much that I would talk down at the gatekeepers.
Wow.
That's the biggest sales mistake, because I would get so egotistical and so frustrated if I didn't get through that I would take it out on them. And I don't know who they are, and I never spoke to them again, but I made their life hell for that 14 seconds.
Wow.
Because I was frustrated because I wasn't good enough. And the biggest sales mistake is to think that you're better than someone that you're selling to, or indeed in their ecosystem, because that shut down any chance of working with that company. And there was a black mark against our business's name, not just mine. And it's deeply stupid. And so I learned, it was my young idiocy that quickly learned a lesson. I'm sad it had to happen that way, but I'm glad I did it. So yeah, like that's the biggest sales mistake, is treat people like they're beneath you.
It's such a valuable lesson. I learned it organically. It was just part of me. I've actually spent more time being kind and nicer with the gatekeepers than I have with the people I've been working with. And
it takes you a long way.
Huge. They tell you everything. They tell you the schedules. They tell you when they're available. Actually, I just got off of a call yesterday with one individual telling me, and we spent an hour. We literally spent an hour just chit-chatting with the gatekeeper just to see how they're doing. Yeah. What's life all about? And She basically says to me, she goes, don't meet in these weeks. You should meet in these weeks because no vacation, they're back, this and that.
Exactly.
Like everything. Just like come in with the initial plan here, execution happens here. I'm like, perfect.
It's just
Thank you.
it's so right. Well, the penny dropped in a similar way. I remember this woman was like, I was just nice to them. And I remember she said, look, don't call during office hours because he never takes calls. By the way, you never would have let me say it, but like whenever you call before, you're asking and then you're gone. And like, because I would just hang up if I couldn't get through. She's like, if you call in office hours, he has a directive, which is do not take calls. But if you call after 5, I patch you through to his mobile and he will take the call in his car on the way home. I'm like, who knew? Just
Brilliant.
by being nice, you know. So you're so right. It's the way to do it.
Absolutely. Most overrated business advice.
Oh yeah, so many. TJ, come on. So, one of the best examples. Okay, is build it and they will come. Wow, what a joke! And the problem is people fall for that. And it's like, oh well, if I just post lots and I build a great product, I deserve deals. No, you don't. Build it should include going out and manually getting your audience and earning all of that. And it's a, you know, the close second is your network is your net worth, which is utter rubbish. If I have a phone directory full of numbers, it doesn't mean I have net worth in that. Your network is your potential net worth. Just because I have a load of connections, it doesn't mean anything unless I do something with them. And that's therein is the key. It's just taking action, you know. So there's
Absolutely. I know one guy so well, and I've told him so many times. I'm like, the people you could be doing anything, and he's never tapped into that network. So it's really about, yes, you have the network, tap into them, connect with them, build the relationships, be authentic, and then find opportunities together. Yes, that will change things. But if it's just going to be like, I know such and such, great, so do I. Right?
exactly. It's worth that. That's why a lot of people on LinkedIn, they just collect connections.
Yes,
And it's like nothing's happening. You need to
nothing
say
happens.
hello. You know, it's like, why wouldn't you do that? Because that's what you do in real life.
Exactly. No, brilliant. And if you weren't in sales, not that you'd want to be in anywhere else right now,
I
what would
wouldn't want to
you
do anything else. If it wasn't in
exactly
sales, I'd be in marketing.
marketing? Yes, that's
Well, no, well, less flippant answer. I would probably, if I could do anything, I would probably want to be like a flying instructor, which is one of my loves, is flying, or it would be like an endurance athlete. I'm doing an ultra next month. I love long, like crazy long bike rides and things like that. So I don't know, something like that. But yeah, but probably marketing because that's like a step over from sales.
yeah,
So.
exactly. Well, they're so interconnected, right? Like,
Indeed, they really are.
yeah, it's incredible. And our last question: if animals could talk, outside of any pets you have, which one would you want to have a conversation with?
A fox. A fox is my favorite animal. Yeah, the reason why is foxes are famously wily, creative, clever, sneaky. They're scavengers. They are agile in thought. They have to, at least the stereotype rings in their way. Yeah. And I'd love to like download from a fox how they, you know, how they are thinking, because they're always like survival. Where's the angle? They are in many ways very aligned with the way I see it. Well, they're kind of very entrepreneurial in the way they survive, if that makes sense.
I was going to say, I see a sales tactic here. Like, learn some sales tactics from them.
Absolutely right. Or like, I've got a pet dog, and I wrote a post once about how she's such a great salesperson because she knows what she wants, and if she wants it, she will dial in all of these little looks she gives you and things like that, and it's really clever. So yeah, you can learn a lot from them, I'm sure.
Love it. I love it. Richard, listen, thank you very much for being here. I absolutely enjoyed this conversation. I think I'm going to have you back at some point again to dig deeper in some of these topics, but this was just very enlightening for myself and I'm sure for the audience as well. So Richard, thank you very much again.
Thank you. An absolute pleasure. I just had a great time. Thank you.
That was an incredible conversation with Richard. Changing the way we sell, how we see sales, and how we market ourselves is now non-negotiable. We have to find the right way to get in front of our clients and do it in a natural way where they're coming to you as opposed to you chasing them. Great gems that we've got. And Richard, thank you again for sharing all these insights and your experiences. If this episode got you thinking, drop your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what you agree with and what you maybe disagree with. Or maybe you have a different way of getting high ticket sales. If this episode got you thinking, drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you found any value in this, share it with us. And if you have a different way of going about sales, share that as well. It might be something someone needs to hear today. And for everyone tuning in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep the conversations going. Until next time, keep on inspiring.